Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Circle and Salve Women. For today, we're going to talk about Tabula Rasa, how to make up and shift into sense. And it's interesting because our makeup, I believe, personally speaking, sometimes gets into the groove of our makeshift. And, relatively, that's to be okay. What we are made up of, and then what we make ourselves into because of all the many things that we arrive at through our journeys, that is to make sense of that molding of the masterpiece that I truly believe is important to understand, that we withhold the power to have, in that we are given that freedom. And yet you are given already the essential gifts, the necessary means to really arrive to who you have been called to be, and all the many things that you are tasked to overcome, to share with the world, to really make a champion of yourself and really find who you were meant to be at every phase in your life. And I say phases because, the things that you did when you were 5, when you were 10, when you were 15, all the way. I mean, I still remember when I was like 12, and with my old soul, I always felt like, okay, what's next? When, then I could be 15. And then when you were 15, you're like, then I could be 18. Then when you were 21, then you're like, okay, I didn't really drink. And there wasn't anything really special about it. I love to dance. But other than that, it was like, okay, what more? And it was just more of just the growing up and thinking that there was so much more you could achieve with the gateway that now you were continue to progress in. And that to me really, I was able to grasp the philosopher John Locke, when he was talking about tabula rasa, that we're all created as a blank slate. And as I ended it and concluded in this article, I reminded myself, and then having reflected that outwardly, is that even though it's a slate, and even though you think it's blank, it is still a rock, right? It's really a flattened rock that's made into this tablet that you can, just because of all the many journeys that you will then have gone through, then it starts off as blank, but then becomes filled up with all the many things that you have then completed in life or have gone through. And to me, what's important to remember is you're still a rock that, even though it was flattened and it was polished, in the beginning, so that then you could fill it with many parts of your life, you were still something significantly unique from the beginning, because no rock is the same. And so my thought on that is reminding ourselves that our makeshift should not be confused with our makeup should not be confused with our makeshift. It's, to me, we're always wanting to be something bigger and better. There's nothing wrong with that. To strive for success, to strive for prosperity, to strive for just something better than what we were yesterday. The progress is important. To really excel and just to really move toward being excellent at a level of where you feel like you're feeling pretty good about what you've achieved. That to me is something that is important. We should always encourage people around us and ourselves to just keep going. And you know what, no matter what, doing the try. And that's why we journey. And always remember, though, that what was given to us, our makeup, is, different from what stands before us, which is our makeshift. Because when I think about makeshift, it's like driving a car, and here you have your stick shift, or just going into gear and deciding what path to take. And no one is really responsible for who you are becoming. I mean, yes, we could sit here and say, oh, this hurt me, or this discouraged me, or this disappointed me, or this stung, and it really made me take a step back. But it is still our decision and our own power within to push forward and make that decision. Because even though you say, I had no choice, there's always a choice. You can choose to fold, you can choose to cower, you can choose to never rise again, you can just choose to submit to whatever it is that you find yourself in, or you can choose to fight. And sometimes people, when people say they fight to their death, is because they would rather find the meaning. I think about, was it Michael B. Jordan in the movie Wakanda, when he was looking at was it the sunrise or the sunset, forgive me, and top of the cliff, and thinking about choosing to, forgive me for the lesser, lack of better memory of the exact words, but choosing to really just rather die than to live. And what did he even use the word, serving or being enslaved or something of that matter, where he wasn't confined, he wasn't free. And it's interesting, because not to say that taking away anyone's life that you've been gifted, that you've been given, that is so precious, that is priceless, is something that you disregard and think, well, I'll just take my life away. But to me, that was something bigger and deeper, and really saying that I was made to be free. I was made to choose. I was made to select my own path. And so there's that piece right there, where sometimes when a person's feeling constricted, when they're feeling confined, when they're feeling like there's really no way out because there's something that is causing them to just feel like they have been they just have been shackled, and that doesn't have to mean physically, like spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and just everything that you feel inside that it confines you. Then all of a sudden you're like, hold on, I can then put into gear whatever direction I need to go to then make the decision of where I want to be in life. Am I just going to accept this, or am I going to stand and rise and move forward in some way? And so to me, that is an everyday type of occurrence, because when we wake up, I had mentioned, that asking yourself what level, just sometimes I forget, and then I remind myself, it's like, okay, from 1 to 10, how are you feeling before you even get up? And sometimes I hear myself saying right away 7. I'm like, whoa, why 7? It's like, because I'm not feeling it right now. I need to go hit the gym or just do a quick burst at home and then shower, and then I'll feel better. So I've already identified what will my makeshift be to get me into gear to heading toward that 10 that I want to feel, that I want to arrive to. And it may not be instantaneous. It may not be something you wake up to. But again, it's that freedom to go, but I have that control to do something about this. But I've already been given everything, right? I've been given the sensibility to know what kind of workout I will need to do to make myself feel good about that, how much time I'm going to need to put in to get there, and then what I'm going to be doing the rest of my day so that I'm feeling fulfilled. Because in my summers, I at least have 2 goals every day that is possible. That is something that I know is realistic. I'm not going to sit here and say, today we're going to have world peace. This is not Miss Universe, and although there's that great hope all the time, and that, to me, that's never a bad answer, because you can't say that it can't become, as long as you're working toward it. It may not happen today, but someone's got to try, and someone's got to say it to really get to that point of adhering to it. And people may say, I think that's silly, but how many things in life people thought were silly and didn't believe in you, and all of a sudden you're like, look at me now. There is nothing wrong with stating something that you believe in, that you want to drive toward. But again, that's that makeshift. And we were given everything that, and believe it or not, we were given everything to really succeed, whatever it is that we've concocted in here. And so to me, the gifted talents that we have, what I truly believe is the unfortunate piece is that when we look at someone else's success, we look at someone who has definitely progressed a lot faster or a lot better than us in some component of life. It's interesting, as a teacher, as a parent, I look at all of my individual children. They're all amazing. And every one of them have these gifted talents that I can only be a part of in trying to help shape. But I know ultimately it's not up to me. They can use it, abuse it, or lose it. I just said that, and I'm glad it came out right. And so, to me, it's really important to really take the time to go, how am I going to cultivate this? How am I going to make sure that I water this right? And even if the days are not coming about where there's the sunshine that I need, the rain that I need, just the good rich soil that I need to get to where I want to be, what am I going to do to make it? And again, I go back to that book of we do things differently, because there's that big piece where it says, anytime you want to find someone, you want to know how people succeed, ask someone who had no choice. And that to me is like amazing. Hang out with those that just go, I didn't give myself an option. I didn't give myself an option but to get my teaching degree. I didn't give myself an option but to graduate in the time I needed. Because I told myself, if I have to take summer classes, I'm going to do this, because I'm not going to have the time or money to really go another year for this. And I had to do that just psychologically and tell myself that. And that's to my business. That's not to anybody else. That's not to have judgment on anyone else in the path they've taken. But that was my decision, because I had other things that I had already planned out after that. And I was like, I've got to go. I got to get moving, And so that's life. And so this makeshift, it's like some people don't mind driving a Honda. Some people need to drive a Lamborghini. Some people, they go ahead and do the Uber or the Lyft or whatever it is, because they want to take an excursion in their own way. And, as long as you're getting to where you want to in your destiny, that is important. But the piece is that sometimes we think we're going to, if we get, into someone else's car, we're going to go in the same destination that they've gone, or that all of a sudden we follow their path. We're going to go exactly and get the life that they exactly have. And it's great to have that inspiration and that awe. But then you also have to say to yourself, where am I as an inspiration? Where am I where I give that awe to other people? And, there are those who may become despondent because all of a sudden you may hear that darkness inside you that says, nowhere, you're nothing, you're not doing anything with your life, And then there's the other person goes, but hold on, who is stopping me from doing that, And that you can fight that. And again, in my article, I pointed out that, there will be a person that will rise from a fall and keep going and perhaps get even better, at it, and then continue to be prominent and prosperous and really have that progression moving forward, where someone, they stumble. And sometimes, yes, we stumble more than once. And then you start to listen in on what everybody else is saying. Don't do that, just do this. It's easier and so forth. And you start to let go of your dreams, or you start to let go of your aspirations. And you start taking the easy route. And then 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, you're looking back and going, should have done that. Why did I let all this time, pass me by? And then all of a sudden, you're feeling like you're looking at other people's lives going, if I only had that life. And then life would be good. And that's not the case, right? Like, you have to tell yourself, like, hold on. I have to find that inner joy so that I can get back into my own car and know that I have my own calling, that I know that I'm made to do something of my life. No matter how little it is big to someone else. There are people that probably think, and I've heard it, why teach? Or there are people who don't have children. It's like, and all of a sudden when we had two more, people were like joked around and perhaps half jokingly saying, why did you have more kids? You were in the clear. Well, my husband and I have already just made up our minds in the beginning. I would have 5 just as much as my mother was able to, raise. And so at that time, it wasn't anything that was new to me or something that I had to talk myself into. It just came natural. And so everyone, whatever your decision is, that is your makeshift. That is your decision. And so you really need to think about your gifted talents, what you're made for, what comes easy for you, what's your passion. As you can tell, I'm working on the Eyes of the Throne, and that to me is coming. And if you know that story, I call it the Eyes of the Throne, and if I perhaps don't even have to explain that to you as to why the certain animals that I've chosen. But this is something I just do. It's not something monetarily that I'm sitting here that I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, this was going to get me. So it's something so easy for me, just like something writing, that even if I was to set it aside, which I have, 10, 20 years, 30 years later, because I was so fixated and focusing on loving and giving to my children and my husband and, to my students, there is no regret, absolutely no regret there, because when it's something that is a gifted talent to you, if you are a pianist, you could just pick up where you left off and play the piano. You may be rusty for a quick second, because I know there were times when I picked up the paint, then all of a sudden it would just flow. And who's to say that I'm not getting any better? I hope so, because I'm enjoying it the more and more I do it. And that's just it. I've written poetry, still do. I've written books, still do. You can see I write articles, I talk. I may be talking to myself. Who cares? This is you. This is what you have been appointed to do in your heart. I truly believe that God goes, you're talking to me. And so who else needs to really, be the one that can down you on that? I mean, that's all sometimes you need, because then it's like all of a sudden this like reflective moment to go, okay, I'm in my peace. I'm here where I need to be. And I have found myself. And it is not to try and sell myself to anyone who then thinks they have judgment over me, who can make me feel small or bigger. That doesn't matter. You are magnanimous on your own. You are magnificent on your own. You are big on your own. And until you believe that, you will always be then looking at someone else's life thinking that should have been your makeup, so that you could have shifted in that direction. No. If you're wasting your time on that, I shouldn't say waste, that's a strong word. But if you're fixated on that, you haven't taken a look at yourself. You haven't taken a look at your own gifts, who you were made to be. You're not trying to shine for anyone else. If anything, you are shining on your own so that someone can then be illuminated by your own light. You don't need someone else's light. You can be inspired by them to go, yeah, you know what? I can do that too, Because, mine is not a Leonardo da Vinci painting, and it definitely is not a Monet, but for me, it's mine. But I know that someone else picked up a paintbrush, and that inspired me to pick up a paintbrush, right? It's just something that you do, and you just go, okay, this is something that is a part of me, and hopefully I'm inspiring someone else to go, you do you. And it's the same thing as when you're a teacher, when you're a nurse, when you're a doctor, when you're an athlete, when you're a mover, a shaker, a maker, a doer. It's just just to inspire people in your own way. Always tell yourself, it doesn't matter if it's one person, because if it's your child, if you're a student, if it's your spouse, your partner, you've inspired someone that needed you, and that is more than enough. Sometimes you're only made to inspire one, so that one can then inspire millions, if not countless people. Remember that. So in the words of my mother, God bless us all. Again, Tabula Rasa, how to make up and shift into sense. You've got it in you, and just keep driving along, and stop and smell the flowers, enjoy the views. Sometimes you just have to keep going past some exits, and if you pass an exit that you thought you should have stopped over, there's nothing to tell you that you can't turn back around and take that exit once again. So it's all good. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.